And frankly, I feel like a small child in here. We are in bathroom 1 of our 45 wet oak project, and all the blue marble is now installed in this wet room. I want to walk you guys through the installation process, the challenges that we faced and how we tackled them, and even walk you through some of the specific details that we paid attention to, making sure that this feels as elevated as we intended it to be. And of course, bringing this all back to the vision of not only the project, but our brand. Framing was all situated with the understanding that we would have full slab in this space. We also knew the thickness of the slab, but one of the details that we always pay attention to is our shower floors and our tile floors. We are going to recess that subfloor down lower than this elevation, so we make sure that we have the flexibility to build that floor up to the desired height. But that's going to be the first thing that we're paying attention to. We also knew that all of these walls would get clad in a full depth 3/4 inch stone, so we wanted to make sure not only are they structurally sound, but are they super flat. So these are the walls that we did end up using engineered lumber on, making sure that these walls are going to be super flat to make templating and installing the stone as easy as possible, because you can imagine the feat that it takes to actually install this stone. The most important thing that when it comes to any wet room or shower or anywhere that's going to be experiencing water is waterproofing. So our go-to partner is always Schluter. We're always using their products, and the big thing with us is that we want to be using one product throughout. We're using the Curdy board on the walls as well as the Curdy band for all of the seams and the penetrations. But on the floor, we're actually using the Dietra first. The uncoupling membrane is going to start building up that elevation that we need, but more importantly, it allows us to install our heat cable. So anytime we have stone on the floor or tile on the floor, we're almost always installing a heat cable for floor warming. So this entire space actually gets that floor warming cable, which is really important that when you're in a shower or a wet area, that you're waterproofing on top of that heat cable. So you actually can see the Schluter Curdy membrane actually is installed on the floor and runs over the top of the Dietra, covering all of that heat cable to make sure that we're fully waterproof. Now there's a lot of specific details we'll get to in a minute about how we transition out of that shower. But one of the things that comes up constantly is drains. So in the middle of this shower, we have just a 4" by 4" square drain. This is the temporary piece that essentially helps with alignment, but this will actually be a stainless steel trim with a stone inlay cover. So you're just gonna have a small reveal in the end, in the end product. The reason that we ended up using a traditional drain over the linear drain is specifically from a detailing perspective, but also a maintenance perspective. The linear drains are great, they're super sleek, and we still use them on occasion, but we have found over the course of the last few years, a lot of our clients just don't like cleaning them. So we said, why don't we go back to a simpler drain that's easier to clean? It's right in the middle, you're not dealing with a longer linear drain. So we swapped to these. So you'll see these consistently throughout this entire project, and they are tiled drain covers, so you do still get that really seamless look. The ceiling's actually an elevated ceiling, meaning it's higher than the bathroom, upwards of 13 feet, and that ceiling itself will actually get a waterproof plaster. You'll see some wiring sticking out of the corners. There's actually this really slick detail where the light sits on top of the stone and sheds across the ceiling there. Now, fun fact, we originally talked about putting a skylight in there, and I'll talk about why I wanted to do the skylight at the end of this video, but we opted not to, mainly from a structural reason. In terms of the ceiling will just be a waterproof plaster, and then that light will actually cast light across it. It will really give that vision of that ceiling glowing. So it's gonna be really important for the guys that are plastering that ceiling to make sure that they're using a large straight edge to get a really flat ceiling, because those trowel marks are going to showcase, especially with that light planing across the surface of it. So above the tub, we have one of our tech lights, which is a 2 canister light. And then over here, we actually have our shower head. All the fixtures are a Vola, so it's a Danish company that's making these. We're using the stainless steel fixtures. We are able to use a ceiling mounted shower head. So if you can imagine in the future, there's gonna be this long 5 foot or so shower head that hangs down and really gives you this dramatic kind of rainfall out of the shower. And then looped around the corner here, we have our handheld and then all of our temperature and flow controls right here. So let's get to the stone. The slabs were all picked from the same lot. This is a blue marble. It's called Blue Celeste. It's not an overly expensive marble. I know that's subjective to who's watching this video, and I'm sure you guys will certainly comment on that in the comments. When we went through the pricing exercise, we actually looked at a handful of different blue options, and this was by far the most beautiful and really accomplished what the vision was, but also wasn't this enormously expensive stone, which was, you know, to our surprise, really a delight. But working with the stone manufacturer, we worked with New York Stone on this, and they were able to help produce a lot that was consistent. That's really important. This stone can vary pretty wildly. So they were able to actually digitally templatize this to make sure that we understood what this space would look like prior to ever even getting into fabrication. So we knew that we were comfortable with the natural stone. Of course, we have the renders which set the stage for what this space would look like, but those renders were done months and months before we even had the lot selected. So you can actually see this back wall is 6 pieces. You have the 2 lower ones, the 2 middle ones, and then the 2 top. And then similar on either side of the wall, you have these 3 pieces. But you can see how everything's been laid out, where even though you do have a seam, you are using the same lot, so you have that veining that goes right through that stone. All of the seams are really, really tight. They'll go back and actually fill that with an epoxy and then blend all of that together. And really just so you have a nice smooth surface. Same thing with the corners, making sure everything is sealed, though your waterproofing layer is not the stone, it's behind that stone. Same thing on this side. You come down on 3 pieces. This shelf here lines perfectly up with this seam here all the way across. And then same thing here, making sure that we're getting consistent seams throughout. And then on the inside here, it actually goes up and around across the header here and then back down. The tub, I'm gonna actually get in and just show you. I'm about 6 feet tall, and it's overly comfortable for me to sit down. And frankly, I feel like a small child in here. So nice big tub, and it really accomplishes what we were looking for. The tub is designed as this kind of cubic structure that is kept off of the wall. We're in progress right now, but we essentially have the stone that drops down, and we have this small shelf detail, and then our Vola tub filler and volume control actually sits back there and will fill the tub. So those pieces are actually being fabricated right now to make sure that we have not only the correct layout for our plumbing fixtures, but they're actually going to make those removable. So if we ever have to service the plumbing, we can remove those pieces of stone and service it, and also have access to not only the shutoffs for the plumbing, but also the temperature control. The floor, the entire floor is all solid stone. We have solid stone, and this section here is all completely flat. Really important, not just that it's on the floor, but it's completely level and flat. And I say that because this will ultimately get wet, and we don't want water running towards the center of the bathroom. We want to make sure that this is installed perfectly flat. But that brings me to the shower floor. The shower floor is 1 piece of stone. And you don't typically see this. You have a drain in the middle here, and typically you would see this fabricated where you'd have these triangular pieces essentially that were assembled and then pitched down to the drain. So you can imagine that this stone is lower than that outside corner, and then you'd have a seam here allowing you to accomplish that. We're not doing that. We've actually manufactured this stone. I'm not going to give away too much on how they did it, but if you can envision that corner of the blue is about 3/4 of an inch, and then right here where it hits the corner of my drain is only about a 1/4 inch thick. Really impressive to see these guys be able to pull this off and machine this out of 1 piece and get rid of all those seams. Now I know what you're asking, or you're going to ask, what about slippage? This is a big concern when you're talking about large format stone. When this gets wet, you don't want to be slipping. There's actually a special sealer we'll put on this that will prevent that from happening. It gets applied once a year. Sometimes you can go longer depending on the usage, but assuming that this is used once or twice a day. I'm gonna pull this out, and then I got a ball in the background, and I'm gonna drop this just to show you how it's very deceiving. You can't see the pitch, and you actually can't feel it when you're standing there, which is really nice. But if I were to drop that ball, you can imagine water being in here, and it's gonna follow round and around, and we're gonna end up right in the drain. So that is just a product of a fabricator understanding how to accomplish what we were going for here. You know, even in the shop drawing process, originally this was gonna be 4 pieces. I'm so glad that it's not, because it's that much better. We need something to prevent water from getting out. So in the future, we will have a splash panel, which is a piece of 1/2-inch glass that will be tied into the wall here and out to about just right aligned with our tub. So as I'm in the shower, I'm really getting protection around here. Obviously the tub being, you know, totally fine to get wet. This ledge will likely have water. But as you exit the shower, you can imagine you're gonna exit this way. So in terms of the glass detailing, that's why the stone is in now, why we're not plastered, and frankly, why we don't even have blue board up top, because this piece of glass is actually gonna be full height. It's gonna be lifted up into that cavity and then drop down into a glass channel, tucked really tight against the stone, on the vertical here, and then we'll come back and stop bead and plaster to it. Now, plaster on the ceiling, plaster on the wall, and lastly, on the floor, we have our white oak. So you can imagine, you know, this will be spaced about 5/8 of an inch away from the stone to fit our glass channel as well as our glass. We have our Schluter Curdy membrane that runs out of the shower. You know, any moisture that makes its way down between the stone and the glass or anywhere, we just want to make sure that this is all waterproofed. Then we're going to come back with our Madeira oak flooring, and this oak flooring is going to be brought up against the stone. We'll probably keep it about 1/8 of an inch away, and we'll install this wood, and then this will get a bead of silicone bridging between the 2 materials. Now typically we don't like to bridge anything with caulking or silicone, but this is a unique situation where we're helping prevent any moisture or water getting down and in there. Now what happens if moisture or water does get down and in there? We'll actually take our board, and we have our factory finish on top here, which is that beautiful oil finish, but we're gonna come back and actually gonna seal the entire edge, bottom, basically all 6 sides all 5 sides with the exception of the factory finish, with a solid sealer, essentially preventing any water damage from getting into the edging or even the bottom should water make its way down and underneath that board. Now, we don't expect that to happen. We do have glass. The water is contained over there, but as you step out of the shower, we just want to really have kind of belt and suspenders. And frankly, as this home is used, there'll probably be a bath mat to dry your feet, whether that's permanent or something that people pick up after a shower. TBD. We don't live here. We're not quite sure. So this wood will go all the way over, and then we have this section here. So you kind of have this bridge between the 2 blues separated by the white oak. And that vanity is actually in New York right now and is at the fabricator, and they're actually wrapping that vanity entirely of stone. So all the door fronts and all the sink will all be integrated stone matching the Blue Celeste marble, which is gonna look really great. Now I said I'd bring it back to the vision of the project and the vision of the brand, but I also mentioned the skylight. We talked about a skylight in here, and my thought was, well, the stone is so beautiful, it's so blue, why not connect it to the blue sky? And that's really what the vision was in this space. All the stone in the home is the Vermont White Danby, with the exception of the primary, and the primary was really inspired by the blue skies. And at one point we talked about doing the skylight. Like I said, it was just cost prohibitive to do that. Now that the stone is in, you're really starting to see the connection to the sky. And as you come up the stairs from the first floor and you look out that beautiful skylight that sits above the dining space, that's your first kind of interaction with the sky. And then as you loop your way back into here, which is this primary bathroom, which really showcases that cloudy blue that we were after. So the connection to the sky was really what was the vision for this space. And even as a builder, thinking about materials and working with craftsmen that can push the boundaries of material, this isn't something that we've seen before. This isn't something that I would say is done very typically. There's a lot of intricate detail, and the guys did an absolutely incredible job. They were here for just 4 short days getting all of this stone installed, and they were able to fabricate and work through a shop drawing process with us, the architect, in their fabrication shop, where they fabricated everything. They came here and everything went in one shot. with no hiccups. So, you know, I'm incredibly impressed not only with the outcome, but on how we got here. So when we think about the challenges and everything that we had to tackle to get this, the large scale stone coming up the stairs and in the space, getting it all the way up against the 13-foot ceiling, all those things clearly have paid off for what is one of the most beautiful primary bathrooms that we've ever done. If you guys are inspired by something like this and you want more content, make sure you subscribe. If you're interested in working with us, there's a link below. You can reach out to us about your project. We appreciate you watching.